is El Nazarian. I will be this evening's host for the Iranian Americans for Liberty's sixth virtual Congressional Meet and Greet of 2021. The Iranian Americans for Liberty is a bipartisan group of Iranian Americans from all around the nation that are working together to support and strengthen U.S. foreign policy and national security solutions to bring democracy, human rights accountability, and freedom of speech to Iranians living under the oppressive totalitarian Islamic Republic of Iran regime. Please visit our website at www.ia4l.org to learn more about the organization. This evening, we are truly honored to be joined by special guest, New York Congressman Andrew Garbarino, for a live Q&A. Before we get started, I would like to read a short bio about this evening's special guest. Congressman Andrew Garbarino is a lifelong Long Islander. I'm not going to say it with the accent.
Long Island.
Long Island. Andrew has dedicated his life to family and community. He is the proud son of a lawyer and a small business owner. Andrew went to Sayville High School, where he participated in student government. But is it Sayville or Sayreville?
Sayville.
Sayville, cool, high school, where he participated in student government and worked at the local hardware store. As a man of faith, Andrew received his communion and confirmation at St. Lawrence Catholic Church, where he still attends Mass every Sunday. After high school graduation, Andrew went on to receive his BA in History and Classical Humanitarians from the George Washington University. Andrew then returned to Long Island, where he received his Juris Doctorate from Hofstra University. Andrew's love and appreciation for his family-oriented community in Long Island inspired him to run for a seat in the New York Assembly, where he served in the 7th District for 4 terms. During his tenure in the Assembly, Andrew fought to increase state funding for Long Island school districts, protect Long Island's our environment, including the Great South Bay, oppose tax hikes, and support local heroes in law enforcement. Andrew now represents New York's 2nd Congressional District and fights every day for the hardworking people of Long Island. Congressman Garbarino, thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to turn it over to you now for a few brief opening remarks before we begin our Q&A.
Adele, thank you so much. I'm happy to be back. I was here last year as a candidate, and we had a big victory in November to replace Congressman Pete King, the great Pete King, who was the first chair of the Homeland Security Committee in Congress. And I'm just doing my best to fill those big shoes that I have. But I have to add that I was not just the proud son of a attorney and small business owner, but my mom, who was a home ec teacher. And I can't leave her out because she was very important with my childhood. I was a very large child because she used to love to bake, and I was her taste tester. So I can't leave her out. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mom and my dad. So I didn't want to leave that out. But Adele, I'm just so thrilled to be here to discuss all different issues tonight. I guess we can just get started if you want.
I'd love to. And it's so nice that you mentioned your mom. It's International Women's Month too. So of course, God bless the moms and dads out there.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right into our Q&A. For our first question, we would like to ask you to share with our audience, what is your why? Why do you wake up every day to fight for your constituents in our nation's capital?
What is my why? All right. That's a great question. Sometimes I think, why the hell am I doing this? But no, no, it's, it started, I never planned to get into, it wasn't the plan for me to be state assemblyman, and now a congressman. I wasn't, people plan, they said that they have their whole life set out and they have goals. I was an attorney. I was in my downtown, and the opportunity came to run for state assembly. And then when Pete King ran or retired, the opportunity came to run for Congress. And it's corny, you say it, but it's weird. You can actually help people in this job. A lot of people think, oh, you're a politician, you just do this for yourself. And I'm not saying all politics, every politician is in this for the right reasons, but there are a lot of us that are. And I first noticed it in the state assembly, and now I am noticing it in Congress, even though right the first couple of months I've been down there, it's been a little partisan. but there are people that genuinely care. There are people that genuinely want to help their constituents, and whether it's pass uh, a large bill, a big bill that takes care of a whole group of people, or whether it's through using your office to help someone through community service. It's or through perfect example. We helped a veteran, a World War II veteran, the other day, probably about 2 weeks now, get his vaccine shot for the COVID vaccine. It was the highlight of my day. I mean, my week probably. It still is. I mean, it's just amazing. The fact that in my position, we can help people and help them on a level that it matters personally to them. It really, it's like being a golfer. I'm a terrible golfer, but I hit that one good shot. I'm that one good shot brings me back the next time. I might not be able to get everything done in one day, but you help one person, you help one group of people. That's what keeps you coming back.
Absolutely. Well, you strike me as someone who, no matter how long he serves in office, you won't lose your core values. So that's very refreshing to see. So thank you.
Now, listen, if I once I lose them, I know it's time to go. If I wake up and don't care anymore, that's the day I need to retire.
We'll hope that day won't come unless you choose for it to come and for good reasons. So, I want to ask you for the next question about your support for House Resolution 157. This resolution states that opposing the lifting of sanctions imposed with respect to Iran without addressing the full scope of Iran's malign activities, including its nuclear program, ballistic and cruise missile capabilities, weapons proliferation, support for terrorism, hostage taking, gross human rights violations, and other destabilizing activities. Thank you so much for co-sponsoring this important resolution. Can you please tell us what do you think is the biggest challenge the US and our allies face with the Islamic Republic of Iran?
Well, obviously the biggest, absolutely the biggest challenge right now is making sure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. There's a lot of countries out there that have nuclear weapons or can develop nuclear weapons. We're not worried about them using it. Iran is one where, we don't know, and making sure they don't have a nuclear weapon, they can't produce one, is absolutely the number one priority that we need to accomplish. Biggest challenge to the United States is making sure that they don't get it. But again, human rights, what they're doing to their population, their citizens over there, it's terrible. What they're doing in their support for terrorism, it's all these different terrorist organizations, it's awful. Cybersecurity, what they're doing, they're attacking us, just not they're attacking people, just not in person. They are attacking the U.S. and other allies of ours through online hacking, through ransomware. It is a huge problem. It's probably one of the biggest problems we have. Nuclear is definitely number one, but cybersecurity and the hacks and the ransomware that Iran's doing is definitely number two. Number two on a list of a long things. If Iran, if they want to sit at the big boy table, we need to make sure that they act like big boys. We need them to be responsible. We need them to act reasonable. And I don't think right now they're not. So the U.S. and our allies need to hold them accountable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's talk about your committee assignments for a minute. Congratulations, by the way, on being named to the House Small Business and House Homeland Security Committees. In a recent study released by the Small Business Administration, the SBA, we learned that 47.5% of America's workforce are employees of small businesses. Your commitment to advocating for your district small business community is really to be applauded. You also come from a background with your father, as you mentioned. So can you please tell us a little bit more about how you will continue serving your district small business community in our nation's capital?
Well, I'm thrilled to be on both of those committees, the Small Business and Homeland Security Committee. I'm the ranking Republican on the Homeland Security Subcommittee for Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection. That's why I know so much about cybersecurity and the issues that we face and other countries face. But small business, it touches home to me, not just because my family is from a generation of small business owners. My father had the law practice. His father had a local grocery store. His uncles had grocery stores all over in the 30s and 40s on Long Island. Not to mention, you said 47.5% of the America's workforce are employees of small businesses. In my district, 92% of the people that work, 92% of the employers in my district are small businesses. I have a lot of people that commute out, but of the people that actually have jobs or produce jobs in my district, those are small businesses. So making sure small businesses can succeed, making sure they have the help, making sure that we're not getting in their way through overregulation and overtaxation, that's very important to me. Small business is the backbone of our economy. We need to make sure they thrive. Small businesses are what grow into big businesses. Home Depot started off as a small business. They weren't home. They didn't just pop up one day, all these Home Depots around. Or these Lowe's or any small business or any big business you look at now started off as a small business. So, we need to make sure that, through innovation, through less regulation, through less taxation, that these small businesses have the support they need to thrive. And it's especially important now with COVID, between restaurants and stores and all sorts of businesses, they were all shut down, especially in New York, due to the COVID restrictions. We now, we need to support them, make sure that they can get back on their feet. These businesses didn't hurt because of things they did. They hurt because of government regulation and the pandemic. So, we need to try to make them whole, try to make sure that they have everything they need, access to everything they need, so they can get back to where they left off when pre-COVID. That's a huge issue, and that's all going to be coming through the Small Business Committee. And I can't say it again how happy I am to be sitting on that committee.
That's awesome. I mean, what great responsibility, and really looking forward to you helping alleviate all the pressure on small business owners. So thank you for that. So during the 2020 campaign cycle, law enforcement was a major issue throughout the country, of course. Can you please tell us a little bit more about your record as it relates to supporting law enforcement?
Well, I've always backed the blue. That was a big thing during the campaign. New York last year passed a lot of anti-cop legislation that they called criminal reform legislation, but it was anti-police legislation. There, you can fix the criminal justice system without going anti-cop. And the problem is you just need to get people to the table to discuss those issues. And last year in New York, when I was in the state assembly, they didn't want to. The people who were passing bills didn't want to bring the cops to the table. They didn't want to talk to law enforcement and find out how things could be made better all at once. I was supported in the election by a lot of different groups, both the Nassau and Suffolk, the counties that I represent, their police departments, the New York State Troopers, the New York City Police Department, as well as a lot of other organizations, sheriff groups, Port Authority, PBAs. A lot of different groups supported me because I've always stood with police officers. You're always going to have a bad apple, but you can't throw out the whole bunch. You need to make sure we have some of the best cops. I would love it. We're actually working on a bill. Hopefully it gets done soon. We're working on a bill, to make sure that the training standards for cops are as good as we do in Suffolk and Nassau County, because we have some of the best cops here on Long Island. I've always backed them. I'm going to continue to back them. Lee Zeldin put in a bill with the Police Officers Bill of Rights. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of that. So I'm always going to support them. And through my role in Homeland Security, I'm going to support law enforcement and working with them, making sure that they have all of the assets that they need, all the tools that they need to make sure that our homeland is protected. Whether it be through cybersecurity, whether it be through the ports, through the borders, or through intelligence. It's very important to make sure that our federal law enforcement officers have all the support that they need to get their job done, because they are our defense. Once something gets through, it's too late. We don't want it to be too late. We want them to stop stuff before it happens. So we got to make sure they're prepared, they're properly trained, and they're properly equipped.
Thank you, Congressman. We agree with you that supporting law enforcement is an absolute non-negotiable. So let's talk a little bit about an issue that doesn't get the attention that it deserves. On February 18th, you introduced a bipartisan piece of legislation called the Veteran Suicide Prevention Act. Sadly, we have lost tens of thousands of American veterans to suicide in the last couple of years, and especially during COVID, I'm sure. Um, what does this legislation do to address the situation?
So, and I'm thrilled to be the lead sponsor of this bill. My predecessor had it. What it does is, and I wish it did more, but it's something that we have to do. The Department of Veterans Affairs needs to compile and review um, suicides by veterans over the last, and that's what it does. It reviews these suicides over the last 5 years. Unfortunately, right now the VA only controls the information of veterans that it assists through its the VA hospitals. But and there's so many veterans that don't go to the VA hospital, so they don't even have that information. But it's such a huge issue. Veteran suicide, veteran homelessness. It's something that we need to get the information of how bad it actually is before we can focus and address on how to make it better, how to make it less worse. It's a start. It's not the finish. It's the start of getting the information so we know how to address the problem. I'm happy to be the lead sponsor on it. I hope it gets through this year. I'm also the proud co-sponsor of a bill that Lee Zeldin started. I can't say enough about Lee. He was great. He has this Joseph P. Dwyer program. We have it in New York State. It's a peer-to-peer counseling program that, a lot of veterans, they come home with PTSD. They don't want to talk to regular counselors, but they don't mind talking to a peer, someone who's been in another veteran who's been in the same situation as them. So it was a program that's run very well in New York State, and we're trying to make it national because we really think that could help a lot of veterans cope with the PTSD and get better. So my bill would get the information where we need it, and then I think there's other bills out there that we could use to focus and address and fix the problem.
Wonderful. Thank you. Switching to foreign policy a little bit, as it relates to veterans, of course, who've served, but many elected officials were highly critical of the previous administration's decision to order a drone strike that killed former IRGC Commander General Qasem Soleimani. Did you support this action? And is the world a safer place with Qasem Soleimani gone?
That's an easy one. Yes, I supported it, and yes, it is a safer place. Absolutely. I mean, we all know how bad he was, Soleimani, and that's what you do. Terrorists will keep being terrorists until you stop them. We stopped them. So yes, I think the world is a safer place.
Well, it's widely known that the Islamic Republic of Iran funds terrorism all throughout the world. In recent years, the regime provided support to Hamas in Israel, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and so many more terrorists around the world. In Israel, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad were responsible for numerous deadly attacks originating in Gaza and the West Bank, including attacks against Israeli civilians in the Sinai Peninsula. What, in your opinion, can Congress do to continue to freeze the Iranian regime's assets and finances that continue to fuel terrorism around the world?
Well, I mean, we need to keep pressure up. We need to make sure that the sanctions are not lifted. I know there's talk of U.S. rejoining the JCPOA and lifting sanctions. I think we can't do that. I said it before. If Iran wants to be treated like an adult, they need to start acting like it. And we pulled out because they were not acting like adults. They continued to support terrorist organizations. They started trying to enrich uranium again. They were testing ballistic missiles. I mean, we can't, and our allies can't. That's another huge issue because it's not just the U.S. We have, South Korea is holding, I think, $1 billion in assets that Iran's trying to get access to again.
Wow.
Other countries are doing this. We need to keep the pressure up because I think it's working. They want the sanctions to end. They only want them to end because if they weren't feeling pain, they wouldn't care. They're feeling pain. The sanctions, in my opinion, are working. Congress needs to keep the pressure. We need to tell the president that unless Iran starts acting like an adult, we should not treat them like an adult. We've got the stick. We're already using the stick, which are the sanctions. Don't give them the carrot before before the stick works. They need to stop doing what they're doing, what they've been doing, and until they do that, I don't think we should increase sanctions. We should make sure they don't have access to their oil, or that they can't sell their oil. We should do whatever we can to show them that, or the leadership. And it's the leadership, that they can't continue to act the way they are against other people's citizens and against their own citizens.
Yeah.
It's both. It's a humanitarian issue, and it's a foreign affairs issue. It's not just us. The way they're treating their own citizens is not right. So we got to keep up the pressure.
Thank you. So as we discussed, the regime in Iran spends billions of dollars funding terrorism around the world. And most Iranians, actually, I'm sure you've spoken to them, and many are on this event right now live. Most Iranians do not support this, actually. They would rather see billions spent on building infrastructure, roads, and schools. So what is your message to the people of Iran that might be listening to this event as well? Do you stand with the Iranian people in their quest for freedom from the tyrannical regime in Iran?
Oh, absolutely. I signed on to, there was a resolution I think we just did that speaks directly to Iran democracy and the human rights. I think it was Iran democracy and human rights resolution. I remember the number, but Iranians, the citizens, need to be able to live. There are billions of dollars being spent. Like I said, there's a billion in assets being held by South Korea. That if Iran would just act properly, that billion could be released, and they could use that money for good, for schools, like you said, roads, bridges, infrastructure, sewers. I mean, they can't. Businesses in Iran, people in Iran can't do better. They can't expand. They can't grow without these necessary assets. The government should be spending money on infrastructure rules. That's our job. And instead, they're spending money, billions of dollars, funding terrorism around the world. And most of it's not in Iran. So it blows my mind that they would abandon their people so much. And I absolutely support the Iranian people in their quest for freedom from this current regime. They need it, and we need to stick with them.
Thank you. Appreciate it, I'm sure. The Department of Justice, the DOJ, recently arrested and charged a political scientist / author for acting as an unregistered agent of the Iranian government. For over a decade, Kaveh Afrasiabi pitched himself to Congress, journalists, and the American public as a neutral and objective expert on Iran, while receiving payments from Iran for his efforts. Sadly, there are so many other individuals like Afrasiabi in the US, and they are a national security threat and to our nation. And so Representative Yvette Harrell from New Mexico recently led an effort to send a letter to the DOJ calling on them to increase their efforts related to FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act. As a member of the House Homeland Security Committee, do you think violators of FARA are a national security threat?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and I can't get into details of some stuff I know, but they are. I mean, and it's not just Iranian nationals. It's a lot of other groups. And Yvette Harrell, representative from New Mexico, she's a freshman with me. She's great and very smart. But yes, I mean, they are the violators are a national security threat. Not everybody, but there are bad actors here, and we need to from a lot of different places, and we need to. They're not here to do good. they're bad actors by reason. So we need to make sure we, the Department of Justice keeps tabs on them, make sure that they're not doing, or they don't have access to, they don't get access to people or information that they can send home and do us harm. So we need to be, and this is the point. People want to do us harm. They want America not to succeed. So we need to be on alert. We need to make sure that we do not have sensitive information lost. We do not have people giving out this information unbeknownst to them. Of course, a lot of these people are very good at what they do, so you don't even realize you're giving away information. So it's something, it's a huge issue, and the DOJ definitely needs to step up and make sure that we are protected, not just outside of the country, but inside the country as well.
Okay, Congressman Garbarino. So we have one final question for you, and I think you're going to like it.
Oh, good.
I want to know, if you could have dinner with any two deceased individuals, who would they be, and where would you choose to have that dinner?
Two deceased individuals. Huh. Well, as you heard, I was a classics and history major. So one of them would be, I would want to sit down with Julius Caesar. I think that would be so interesting. I mean, just what he did, what he accomplished in such a short amount of time for Rome would be amazing. And of course, you'd have to, you have to do it. I don't know where we would do it, but if we're all together, him, and I think the other person would have to be my grandfather, because my dad's dad, and the reason I say it is I never met him. But everyone who says, who I speak now, who knew him, they say to me, they're like, "You are just so much like your grandfather. He would have loved you." So I wish I could have met him, because he did a lot of good things for people. So I'd probably, any good restaurant, just being with the two of them would be very exciting.
Do you cook?
I can cook. Like I said, my mom was a home ec teacher, so she taught me some things. Maybe I'll host them.
Maybe you host them, exactly. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Congressman Garbarino. We have reached our time limit for today's conversation. On behalf of the Iranian Americans for Liberty, I want to thank you for taking the time to connect with our community. And I'd like to give you the opportunity to also say a few closing remarks before we wrap up. Tell us, what's your message to the Iranian American community?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, Adele. This is the second time. I remember the first time I had so much fun. I'm having so much fun now. Thank you. And, my message to the Iranian American community is thank you for being such a wonderful part of America. A lot of you have really done so many things to help our country grow. You are wonderful members of the community. I hope that your friends and relatives in Iran actually get to experience life not under the current regime that they're in, and actually experience freedom. I'm going to be working towards that in my role in Congress, but I can't thank you all enough for inviting me here tonight, for listening, and thank you for what you do for our country.
Thank you again, Congressman Garbarino, and the Iranian Americans for Liberty. Thank everyone for joining us this evening. Our next virtual event will be held on April 8th. I think it's April 8th or April 5th. I've checked that date to make sure, with another special guest, Congresswoman Ashley Hinson from Iowa. And that is also available on our website, which is www.ia4l.org. Please visit there to register for this event. Until next time, I'm Adele Nazarian. Have a great evening.
Good night.